Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media Channel. I have a pretty amazing guest with me today. He's traveled. I have to say, Ken, you've done a lot of traveling, and I appreciate it. And you made this happen. And it's wonderful to have you here in LTL Studio. So welcome.
Hey, you and I talked on the phone. I would have been like, gone over four. What did Vikings do? Forage over things.
Yeah.
Rain, sleet, snow, whatever it took to get here. I'm here.
But Ken and I have actually, it's funny, Ken and I have actually been talking like almost a month now.
Yeah.
Like over a month. And I've been hearing a lot of his stories of, his drug smuggling career turned DEA agent. And we're going to get the full skinny today. So again, I'm super excited that you're here. I know you traveled a lot. You did a podcast earlier this afternoon in Connecticut. You recorded yesterday in New York City. Are you allowed to talk about that at all? Or
yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah,
okay.
We did.
So Ken actually recorded with Mark from Soft White Underbelly, and that's really big. I was like, wow, you met Mark, and that was really cool. And he was telling me a little bit about that. So I'm really excited for that episode to come out for you. And here we are. He's kind of ended his journey at LTL Studios today, and we're going to hear about his life and kind of, I guess, career, right, of drug smuggling turned DEA.
Well, I guess when you do something for 22 years, I think I made a joke in the book that most people get a gold watch and retirement, and I had to sell my gold watch, and most people retire after 25 years and get a gold watch. After I was looking at 25 years and had to sell my gold watch. Yeah, so that's what happened. I was looking at 25 years in the end. Yeah, that's true. And I did sell my gold Rolex to cover the legal bills.
And now we can add author to your credit too.
Yep, that's exactly right. I wrote a book. It's called One Step Over the Line, Confessions of a Marijuana Mercenary. And it's my story going back to 1970s and my introduction into first smoking pot and being introduced to drugs. And it also goes into a lot of the other stories around the drug wars, if you will. It goes into the American government smuggling drugs, black and brown incarceration, what the drug wars and the drug has done to, both sides of society. And I don't condone, marijuana is harmless, but, look at the fentanyl thing going on.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm not saying I had the answer. What I do talk about in the book is that they had to know when they cracked down on drugs in the 70s, it was only 50 years since prohibition. So you know that.
Wow.
So that how did they not know that there was not going to be similar profits made on an illegal product and blood in the streets?
Yeah.
Just like prohibition 50 years earlier. And, by 1980s, we had the cocaine wars and shooting up Miami and, people being murdered right and left. I mean, again, I don't justify it. I'm just saying, as I like to say, nobody was happier than the politicians, lawyers, and the police. So
everybody was getting rich.
Everybody was getting rich.
Everybody was getting rich. So tell us a little bit about your story. How did this all start? And then really kind of when did it start really picking up for you, I guess, getting into the business?
Right. Exactly.
I listened to your prologue in the book, and you said you kind of started out experimenting, smoking a little pot here and there,
like all kids, right?
Yeah.
So the original, well, really and truly, I was born in the Northeast up here, and I was in Wayne, New Jersey, northern New Jersey. It was a Dutch German community. We had a house on my grandfather's farm. My father worked in New York City for another family business, but I grew up running through cow pies and playing in hay, and I had a pony, and my friends had horses, and I grew up eating apple pie, and literally my grandfather, like I said, gave us a piece of land to live on. They then built the grade school behind my house. He sold the land.
No kidding.
Yeah. So you couldn't be more Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
I would literally get a thing. They call us over the radio. Will one of the Behr boys please come get your dog in the office? My dog would get out of the house and go to school, and it's like Mayberry, and at lunchtime I could either eat in the cafeteria or jump over a couple cow pens and land in my grandmother's living room. So it was really easy. My family were immigrants. They came from Germany on the run from the Nazis. So we had a really big, work ethic, and belief in this country and doing it right and working hard. And that was instilled into me. But the other thing that happened to me was I'm profoundly dyslexic. So I failed first grade. And I'll tell you a funny story. When kids stop fitting in, I got into the Cub Scouts and I was so excited. I had my little uniform, my little yellow bandana. And I was going to the first Cub Scout meeting, which was for me, a party at the den mother's house for her son. Now, who could be happy? The den mother's, and I remembered when I was writing the book 50 years later, over 50 years later. Yeah, 50 years. I beat the kid up. And I always remembered beating him up, but I forgot I beat him up because he made fun of me for failing first grade. And so it kind of made me, I guess that was my first outlaw move, beating up the den mother's son. And then when I was 12, we moved to New Orleans. So I went from the Norman Rockwell, apple pie of the Northeast to the Sodom and Gomorrah of the Deep South. Yeah. And now it was 1969, bell bottoms. It was, the
Rolling Stones.
The
Doors.
What do you call it? The Woodstock. Free love.
Yeah, right.
If you look at
the hippie movement,
right?
Yeah.
It was the hippie, and I was. You didn't see that in Wayne, New Jersey, but you saw it in New Orleans.
So you're like,
whoa, right?
Culture shock.
Yeah, and then my dad died, like a few months, later. So now I'm in New Orleans. I don't have any father figure, and this whole thing's exploding around me. Right? So my father had, right before he died, he had the talk, and we're sitting in the pool. We had a nice house, and about don't do drugs, and anybody does drugs, to my dad dying, to me smoking my first joint, to then me doing the next thing I did was a quarter hit of Orange Sunshine LSD.
That'll do it.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's pot a gateway drug. Yeah, kind of for me it was, right. Well, smoke this, eat this, So 8 hours later, when I came down from that buzz, anyway, then my mother decided in 1973 to move us from New Orleans to sunny South Florida to get us away from the drugs. Exactly.
Right.
And she didn't even know we were doing drugs. I mean, she had no idea. She just assumed. And of course, you know the story. 1973 South Florida was like I say in the book, it was 1949 San Francisco, the gold rush.
Right.
It was just the same era. Palo Alto was exploding, and the personal computer. We landed right in the middle of the drug explosion.
Wow.
And one of the reasons, if people don't know, why South Florida is the gateway to America for drugs is it's the closest point to South America. Colombia is 1,500 miles from the tip of South Florida. Now, California has always been a drug entrance area, but that's a different thing. That's Mexican weed, which, we had that in New Orleans. It's nasty, dry at the time, ragweed, nobody want bricks. And they had heroin, black tar, I guess, coming out of Mexico. But I don't even know if they had black tar back then. I mean, most of the heroin, I think, was coming into New York through, Asia. But anyway, here I am in South Florida. So me and my little brother move in, and we find out about this new culture. Like people are totally into their pot. Like, these are my buds, and it's like the buds are orange and gold and sticky, And then we start sniffing coke, and the coke is like really, not that it's not cut, but the rocks are beautiful. Like if you move, if you just take the rocks out of the bag and cut it with a razor blade, it's just beautiful shale. And like, oh man, I tell you what, if I didn't have 2 open heart surgeries and a pacemaker, my wife said to me, she goes, my current wife is very straight-laced. She said, you can smoke all the weed you want, but if you do 1 line of coke, I'm leaving you. I said, honey, I think I'm going to leave too if I do. I think they'll take me on a stretcher. Yeah. But we start selling drugs, and we're using the same. Our family had a retail. We were doing like a retail. First, we had no father. We had no mother that could really control us.
Right.
So we're buying ounces of weed and selling and we're just pretty soon we're like 17 years old in high school, and my brother's maybe 15, and we got bags of blow and weed and quaaludes. And
so you're ramping it up at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, this
yeah.
is you've gone from just smoking a joint
Yeah.
to now you're really starting to ramp up. And
well, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
One time in high school, my mom found 4 pounds of weed in my brother's room. And so she throws it away and flushed it down all the toilets. She was so pissed at us. She goes, you know how long this took me to do this? We said, well, Mom, why don't you just throw it away somewhere? And then I said, listen, Mom, listen, my brother would run his business out of his side of the bedroom, and I had mine. And people would think they could go from one door, like, I'm going to go see your brother. Your prices are too high. Well, I swear, we were partners, So the carpet was worn out. My mom had that 1970s shag carpet. It was all worn out, yeah. And so I actually had a thing where if you were a good friend of mine, you could knock on my bedroom window at any time, and I'd slip out some weed or some blow to you. So,
in a can, like a can on a string? Or?
No, just on first floor. I just had it right exactly. Hold on.
Yeah, the old can on the string.
And then pull up the money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I pull up an IOU, son of a bitch. So we got so good at it that we would have like packages. Like if you were going to go see Led Zeppelin, we would give you like half an ounce of weed, a gram of blow, 2 quaaludes, and a pack of rolling papers. We would give you. We got it, and it was so prolific.
It was like a kit.
Well, we do it, and we gave credit. You always have to give credit to drug addicts. So we actually got so good that they nicknamed our house the BB&G, Behr's Bar and Grill.
Oh God!
And here's the other funny thing: back in the day, they used to fly, the signs over the beach advertising.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do that, but our phone number was 962-0714. And if you remember, quaaludes were called 714s.
Okay.
So we literally had the phone number, no matter how many quaaludes you ate, no matter how stoned you were. You go, 962-0714, and they call us. So we were running this great. And here's the thing. What we were doing was everybody was doing. South Florida was rampant, and all the kids in high school were. Now, maybe we were the largest or one of the most prolific, but everybody figured when you turn 18, you're not going to do it anymore. Cause why? You're not going to go to juvie. You're going to go to jail, and you're going to graduate high school and hopefully go to college or go on with your life. And that's one of the reasons I call the book One Step Over the Line, because I realized while everybody else took 2 steps back, I kept going. And I didn't quit. And my brother, everybody else went to college and, quit and got good jobs. And I just kept working with the other guys that kept working. And at the same time, a good friend of mine, Terry, who was my partner in South Florida, buying and selling weed, the construction crash came. His father was in construction. So they moved back to Ohio. So he's working at the Ford plant in Lorain, Ohio. And I get a phone call from him. And he says, hey man, I think I can sell some weed up here. I said, well, come on down. I'll give you a couple pounds. So he jumps in his car. He's got a black Trans Am, like Burt Reynolds kind of thing.
Yeah.
He actually,
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, and he actually kind of strangely looks
like him.
So much like him that he won a Burt Reynolds lookalike contest that he didn't enter. He was walking through the mall and somebody said, hey, that guy's the winner. I swear to God. So he jumps in his car and he drives 19 hours down. I give him the 2 pounds. He drives back, calls me up a little bit later, goes, hey, I think I can sell, more. And I was working for a big smuggler. I had a friend of mine who had introduced me to this guy, Sandy Perkoff. And Sandy Perkoff was like 40. I was 18. And he was a yacht broker. And he would come in town. And he was kind of like, remember, my dad taught me how important it was to do things right. Sandy taught me how right it was to do things wrong. Right. He was a professional criminal. He was I don't know if you ever saw the movie Tin Men with Danny DeVito. Yeah. He was those guys. He was a tin man in Cleveland. But at the end when they go in front of the Senate subcommittee and all that, he was that guy. He was the guys that I met. All these guys like Tommy Sikorsky and this guy. These were all the tin men from Cleveland. And he said the same stories. He used to tell me they rip off all these people selling them aluminum siding in the summertime, buy a Cadillac, drive to Miami Beach, and party at the Fontainebleau, which is exactly what they do in the movie.
So let me ask you, Ken, at this time, it's still, you said it's 70s, right? You're still in the 70s. Yeah. So it was like cocaine really big, or did that come in really more in the 80s?
So listen, in the 70s, a kilo of cocaine,
weed, right?
Yeah. And a kilo of cocaine was $57,000. A gram was still $60. And people would say, is it cut?
Right.
And I wasn't buying a kilo. I was buying maybe a half an ounce at that time in high school, chop it up, get a little buzz, sell a little. But think about the profit for the dealer. If he cut it in half, he made $57,000 in 1970. You could buy a house with that money. If you cut it 4 times and sold it on the street, you're making $250,000 or $200,000 in 1970. It's like
that's a lot of
$1
money.
million or 800,000 today.
Wow.
So obvious, but we're selling anyway. I meet this guy Sandy. At the same time, my friend Terry moves up there.
Mm-hmm.
So Sandy is friends with a guy named Dave Jackson. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but Dave was a yacht broker also, and he was selling boats to these big smugglers, Donnie Steinberg, Pete Wagner. They were called. I mean, the feds, I think, named them the Company or Marijuana Inc. They were they wrote a book about him. He was on the cover of like Playboy magazine. They got busted after, obviously. That's when we were doing it. So I was kind of getting introduced to all these smugglers and all this smuggling stuff at the same time I was running dope up to Ohio.
Yeah.
And both things kind of simultaneously happened. All of a sudden, I'm running thousands of pounds up to Ohio. Started with 1 50-pound bale, or 2 pounds. The 50-pound bale, we couldn't even squeeze in the car when he came down. To buying 3 cars, loading them with weed, having rent-a-cars that we'd have to back up, and multiple friends from high school driving up and down with the money and the weed. And, we were making really good money. I mean, we could spend it and lose it just as fast.
Right.
Remember, what did Jimmy Buffett say? Made enough money to buy Miami, pissed it all away so fast, never meant to last. I don't care if you made 200,000, somehow I mean, listen, I've been robbed at gunpoint, I've been forced at gunpoint to buy product that I couldn't sell. I mean, I've invest in things. It's not as easy as it sounds or looks.
What's the scariest thing that ever happened that really scared the shit out of you?
Nothing.
Really?
Yeah, I got tied up. I had a gun put to the back of my head. They robbed my entire house and left. And I knew they were coming. I knew that there was home invaders going. So it really wasn't that scary. I just figured if I don't move, if I throw, I had 2 kilos hidden in a secret compartment. I had so many secret compartments in my house that I couldn't find one of them. So when they robbed me, I kind of I was kind of worried, kind of on it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I went outside. Actually, I was packing a gun. I never pack a gun, but I was going outside. I looked through the peephole. And then when I realized I forgot a roll of toilet paper, I was setting up a new, fake business to cover it up. I go back to get the toilet paper. I come out, the guy standing out in front. And I went to get my gun, but he had his out first. So, it's like the old West, whoever gets, believe me, anybody that thinks like you're going to be Wyatt Earp, somebody pushes a gun in your face. I don't care if the barrel's this big, it looks this big. And if he's got the drop on you, he's got the drop. Anyway, they tied me up. And I really wasn't scared at that point because I kind of figured if they find enough stuff, they'll leave without killing me, because stealing from a drug dealer, we accepted.
Yeah.
I lost my Rolex. I had a pistol, a Walther PPK, just like James Bond, because I love that shit. And $10,000, which they go, where's the money? Where's the money? I go, there's 10 grand right there in that suitcase. And they left. I had 2 kilos in my hidden compartment that were worth 60 grand and, other stuff. But they moved an $8,000 piece of art to take a briefcase. All right. I got, so that's kind of, I don't know what I could say would be something that really scared me to my, I'm not trying to sound brave or bravado. I'm just, everything happens like a day at the office.
You ever been in a situation where you felt your intuition kind of there and you backed out of something or left and good thing you did because it could have got bad?
No, the exact opposite. Yeah. I didn't listen to my intuition and I got busted. That's exactly. Where were you that day? Where were you to say, Ken, listen to your voice? Yeah,
it was the devil on the shoulder pulling a little bit harder that day, right?
Get the money, don't go. So I'll tell you back to some. We got a little bouncing around.
That's okay.
Yeah. So I'm in Florida and I start meeting more smugglers, and I'm about 19 or 20. My good friend from New Orleans gets busted, and with some coke. He's one of the richest people. The family's one of the most powerful people in the country. And because of his name and because of, in those days, all he did, he was my best friend. All he did was sell a DEA agent 2 grams of coke. And when the agent said, "Can you get me any more?" I think he sold 1.5 grams. He goes, "Yeah, I can get you a couple ounces." That's all you have to do. That's conspiracy. That's it. You're done. So he sold 2 ounces. His father, who's like, really rich and powerful, said, "You know what? I'm going to let this kid go to Club Fed for 1.5 years, dry out, work out, practice his tennis game, come out scared straight." But he didn't realize his son was a coke addict. It was a disease. He was a child diabetic. He was using the same needle to put the insulin in his arm and just to shoot the coke up. And he needed help, not prison. And when he got busted there, my name came up. And why my name came up, but I had nothing to do with this coke case in New Orleans. They probably just wanted the Florida guy. They always want, especially back then, anybody that's connected to Florida, because that's where the drugs are coming in. So that's going to be climbing.
That's the gateway.
Right. And that's the climb to the bigger.
Right.
The cops sitting there going, if I can bust this guy for 2 grams, maybe I can bust some guy for 1 kilo and the next guy for 100 kilos, right? Or whatever. So my bad dad, Sandy Perkoff, said, "Why don't you leave the country, go down to Jamaica and dry out? I have a friend that owns a hotel and you can hang out for the summertime." So I do. And I'm drying, kind of staying low, learning all about jaw and the weed and all the, lamb's breath and meeting people. And then one of my two of my kind of smuggling / drug running buddies come down. And it turns out that with one of the other guys that I know down there, Hank, born at Extabi, which is the hotel on the water. It's still there, Extabi. He owned it at the time. They wanted to bring a load of weed out. And my friend Bob had a Cherokee 6 plane that he had bought and taught himself how to fly. He was a great smuggler. He was a boat captain, a pilot. He bought a piece of land in northern Florida that has like a fly in, fly out.
Yeah.
And put a mobile home on it. And then he built, cheap enough, right? And then he built a coin laundry in the town of Okeechobee. So he had a good cover, right? Flew in, flew out, owned a business. So we each put up $4,000, which was just enough to cover, a few bucks down for the runway, a little, the product we were splitting with Hank. He was going to own part of it. We were going to own part of it. And my end of it was, I was happy to do the trip. And of course I wanted the ability to sell it to Terry in Ohio.
Right.
So after about 6 months of laying low, I jump in a plane. I fly back to Fort Lauderdale. Bob lands the load and I drive it up to Ohio and sell it and make a bunch of money. And that was my first smuggling trip. I guess I was 19, 20, something like that. And it was 600 pounds of lamb's breath. It was really good. It was really powerful. And then I kept like being involved. One time they had, what they used to do is have me, when I worked for Donnie, they would give me a Learjet and like a couple suitcases full of money and have me fly it to the Cayman Islands. So here I am, a kid, like again, 18, 19 years old. I got $1.5 million in a Learjet. And Sandy had taken me down once, and then he didn't want to go anymore. He wanted me show me the tricks, introduced me to the bankers, and then he bailed out and said, "Just let the kid go." They figured if I got caught, what are you going to do with an 18-year-old kid, right? And I would dress up like I was a rich kid. I bring my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I remember one time I tell the story where the pilots turn around and go, "Oh, we've got your Dom Perignon, sir." And believe me, by that age, I'd already drank a lot of Dom. I mean, it's part of the drug dealer, spy thing. You got to drink Dom Perignon, right? But me and my girlfriend are like, "You could have given us root beer." Like he could have turned around and said, "I've got you the gourmet chocolate milk and the soft chocolate chip cookies." We would have been that.
All right.
That's it. Because I'm going to drink, we're going to drink a little Dom Perignon at 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
But, and then one time we started doing it. We didn't want to fly straight back into America because it would draw heat. So I landed in the Bahamas and was taking a commercial flight back. And me and my girlfriend went to the casino, and these 2 guys come up, local Bahamian guys, start talking to us about, "Hey, how'd you like to move some cocaine on your Learjet," type of thing. And I just said, "That's it. They're on to us." These are either the 2 dumbest smugglers on earth or these are the cops, you know. So I never went. That was my last
Never
trip
went
to the
back in.
Cayman. Yeah, but anyway, that was. Anyway, you were saying you were gonna ask me a question.
No, I was gonna say. So take us up to how, like you said that you got busted here in Boston. Take us up to
Right.
that.
All right.
So you're kind of living this lifestyle.
I'm running
you're
drugs
kind of
and-
bouncing all over
yeah,
the place.
you know, doing a few
Ohio
trips.
seemed like it was a pretty big spot for you.
That was my main thing.
Got it.
That's it. And listen, in high school, a lot of us knew everybody, but you didn't go behind someone's back. Me and Terry, that Ohio thing, we built it. We were partners since high school.
Mhm.
You know, he worked with me. He had come down to Florida and tried to buy weed from other people, got tied up and robbed for 90 grand in a hotel room. So after that, he pretty much said, we'll just be you and me. And everything's chilling. We're moving product. And I get a call from Bob Silverbullet, my ex-neighbor, who was the guy that flew down to do the and he tells me that we have a mutual friend, Bruce Campbell, who's got 40,000 pounds stuck in Canada.
Yeah, you were telling me.
And
the
I'm
story.
like, okay. And he's like, they want us to smuggle it back into America, which is like, wait, what? Don't you smuggle drugs from south to north? Yeah. You know, why? And so Bruce fails to tell us that the pot's so bad it won't get anybody high. You know, marijuana, it's got to be female. If it's a male plant, it won't get you high. And if the male plant gets close to the female during growing, it takes, you know, feminine, I forgot what they call it, but I'm not a grower, but it turns in male. So makes it more like hemp and not like THC, you know, whatever. I'm not speaking like a farmer, you know. Don't quote me. Don't start yelling and screaming. I'm speaking, you know what I'm getting at. So Bruce's weed was terrible. So we go up and we decide what we're going to do is we're going to use Bob's seaplane and we're going to pick it up in a lake in Canada and fly it to a lake in Maine. And we do that. But the seaplane can only hold about, like, normally if we're going to build a runway in the middle of nowhere, like on a dirt road or something, we'll use, you know, strobe lights, Callium sticks, and build. Believe me, I could tell you a story about, you know, 1 minute there's nothing but a black road,
and then all
the
of a sudden
next
it's an
minute
airport.
Yes, exactly.
You got guys out there with flags.
No, we just built the lights flat, you know, boom. It's MIA.
So let me ask you, and I'm sure you've probably seen Johnny Depp Blow. You've seen the movie Blow. You haven't seen it.
So here's the deal.
Okay.
I don't watch anything. I don't watch Sopranos.
Really?
I don't watch. I have severe PTSD.
Yeah.
And those things like
I bring it all back.
I watched Made in America.
Yeah.
You know, with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
It's the Barry Seal story, which I was very familiar with the story. I remember it happening when Barry was going through all that. Yeah, I can't watch that stuff. It actually, writing the book helped me a lot to deal with the PTSD. But there's a scene in the end of Made in America, and I've had that actually made it through Made of America in the movie theater. I just came out shaking, and I luckily my wife looked at me and said, "Ain't nobody got time for that shit." So I said, "Oh, thanks, honey. That straightened me right out." I kid you not. I ain't got no time for this.
Did you know any of those guys? Did you know Boston George or ever deal with like Whitey Bulger?
No, thank God. No.
So take us back to Boston. How you got busted up here?
I'll just tell you, there's a scene in Made in America where there's a bank of payphones. And he's sitting there with a Crown Royal bag of quarters, running around, dropping $2 and something change in each payphone. And I can't tell you how many times I did that.
Really?
Yeah, because when the shit hits the fan, a car breaks down, somebody's missing, you know, whatever, smuggling trips, you know, you're sitting in the Bahamas, you know, we would burn through so many quarters that I had 2 video games in bars, and all I did was pull the quarters out. So I had a constant supply of quarters. Anyway, so we do the trips. We do 6 or 7 trips. We pull the seaplane. We landed in broad daylight. Now you can't land a seaplane at night because you can't see the water, and you can't build a runway. I mean, I guess you could, but you can't do it, you know, covertly.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could do it if you know, it was like life and death emergency, get a bunch of boats out there, but not covertly. So we're doing it in broad daylight. And what we do is the plane lands. We tried using like a raft to go out and meet the plane, but that didn't work. So we just have the plane pull as close to the shoreline of this lake in Maine. I would wade out, grab the bales, throw them in the back of a pickup truck, drive them down to a stash house we had in Maine. Not far from Pennybunkport, the old Bush home. Yeah. So we did that. We did 6 or 7. We had about 1,400, 1,500 pounds. Then we closed down the smuggling operation. The weed stashed in a warehouse, and I start taking it to Ohio to Terry's to try to sell it. Well, I can't sell it. And I had a friend of mine that lived in Bedford Hills, New York, tried to see if anybody there, tried a couple others, I had Buffalo, none of my markets.
You're driving around with this stuff.
Well, I have drivers.
Yeah,
it wasn't that much. It was, we just send a bail. The bail didn't sell, move it over to Buffalo. That didn't work. Try here. Finally, we figured out that I said, listen, guys, I did all the work. I helped you smuggle it in, all this. I can't sell it.
Right.
And nobody can. It's garbage. Well, that's when Bruce kind of let us know it's been sitting in a freezer in Canada for a year, because he couldn't sell it. So it's July 4th weekend, and Bob calls me up and goes, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you fly up to Maine, load the truck, rent a truck, load it up, drive it down to DC where I have he's from originally. I think I can sell it there. I go, Bob, it's a waste of time. The best thing we can do is, burn the shit or whatever.
Right.
He says, no, come on. So all my life, I've had one thing. One of my rules, that stomach, never work on your birthday and never work on a holiday.
And you worked on a holiday.
Right. Because I was like, every year you get up, oh, this is when I was in jail.
Yeah.
Or, every 4th of July, hey, look at the fireworks. Luckily, it turns out
I got busted.
Right. It turns out I still like 4th of July.
Yeah.
It's been 30 years, whatever. So I go, okay, I'll go up and do it. Why? Because of my German upbringing, march up there and get it done.
Yeah.
So I rent a U-Haul truck, and my goal was to rent a small truck and go to a couple garage sales or a couple used furniture stores. They have them all over South Florida, and load it up with some crap and drive down.
Make it look like you're moving.
Right. What happens? I get like a really big truck, like a 20-foot truck, which I don't need, obviously.
Right.
All right. So I go to the warehouse, and I take the bales and I wrap them in. They're in bales. They're in burlap.
Yep.
Bales and duct tape. I put them in garbage bags, and then I tape them up, and then I wrap that in bounce fabric softener, and then I take
mask the smell.
Right. And then I take Carpet Fresh and put that in there, all to mask the smell.
Yeah.
Then I put those into big U-Haul boxes and tape them all up, push them all into the front of the truck. So it's 1,400 pounds. That's about 50, let's say 50 pounds of bale. There's, 2 bales each, it's a bunch of boxes.
What's the street value of that?
It's 400 a pound, something like that. So it would have been, enough to justify. It was really proof of product. If we could do that, then we weren't going to use a seaplane to smuggle 40,000 pounds in. Then we would have found another way to bring it in. This was just
a test.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, or probably in Bruce's case, desperation.
Yeah.
Because maybe the guy that owned the big fish packing company is like, dude, you got 40,000 pounds of weed in my warehouse for a year. I can't imagine people going like, hey, what's over there? Oh, no, don't look. Is that a fish? No, don't look. No. Yeah, that's a fish. You know what they used to call bales when we would bring them in and we'd throw them out of a plane and then they land in the water and then you go up with a boat and you scoop it up. So that's called a square grouper. So they were literally I'm telling you,
fish.
Growing up, and you have the calcium sticks on little green eyes. In South Florida, I had friends of mine in high school that I go, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're going to the Keys. I go, do what? Look for square groupers or floaters, we used to call them. I had a guy that was a first mate on a fishing boat in North Miami, go out every day, charter boat, and they'd find floaters, square groupers, bring them to me. I had another friend who had a nursery in Davie, Florida, which is, farmland. And we'd cut them open, spread them out on big black canvas or tubs, and then wash them with fresh water to get the salt water out, spray them down with Coca-Cola if necessary to get them a little more sticky and fresh, and then put them back in bales and sell them. But we wouldn't sell them as a material. We'd sell them as, this is good fill, or this is, you can't, I'm going to be honest, you're not going to tell somebody you didn't pull it out of the ocean and wasn't soaking wet, and now it's not going to be
right.
But we just sell them as floaters. So that's the norm. I mean, that's the way it was growing up in South Florida. I had a friend of mine that he lived just west of Fort Lauderdale Airport, and he had a kilo land in his backyard. and because I tell you that we used to fly planes in and drop down, and anyhow, he calls his neighbors to see who lost a kilo. Yeah, that's fine. because you fly in with a plane real low and just
And you
kick
just
it
dump
out.
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
I'm up in
Boston.
Right. I'm up in
Yep.
Boston and
Maine. You're in Maine.
Right.
Yep.
And we can't sell the weed.
Okay.
So I go rent the truck. It's 4th of July weekend. The truck is huge. It never occurs to me like to come back and go, hey, can I get a smaller truck? Then there's no garage sales. It's not like Florida where there's a huge population.
Right.
And I'm looking in the newspaper for used furniture stores, and I see it's going to cost like thousands and thousands. It's not like South Florida, which you could, you can drive along and just do this easily.
Right.
It's in a small community, But I had made a deal with a friend of mine. He had retired. He had gotten out of the business. He no longer was living in South Florida. He was living in Bedford Hills, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal is I begged him. He was my driver. He used to drive all the time to Ohio for me, all the time. He was my number one guy. That was his nickname, number one.
Number one.
And I said, come on, let's do this deal together. I want you to help me drive this truck out of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I'm retired. I got a job. I go, look, I'll pay you. I used to pay $1,000 a run. I go, I'll pay you $2,000 because it's a truck. I'll pay for all your expenses and I'll fly you in home. You had a 2-week vacation to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pay for everything for you to go home. And boy, did I fuck up his life. Because guess what happened? Yeah. So I pick him up at I don't know what airport, somewhere in New Hampshire or Boston, I don't know where. And he's dressed in his suit. He just left work. It's Friday.
Yeah.
He's got his suitcase to go home to see his parents. Gonna eat well and get a tan. And we're going down the highway. And what's it, 480 or I can't remember what.
495.
495. Coming from New Hampshire, Maine, down to New York. And we get pulled over. I look in the cop in the mirror. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not speeding. And we just smoked a joint. By the way, the joint we smoked probably get you more high than the 1,400 pounds in it. So
you're into the border now. You've just passed through New Hampshire. You've gotten into Massachusetts.
I'm in Massachusetts. The guy pulls us over, and it's Trooper Mark Lynch. And if anybody Googles Mark Lynch, you can see all the dirty cop stuff he's done. He's been
plenty of it here in Massachusetts.
No, but he's I have to give him
Karen
credit.
Reed friends that are in the chat. We can talk about dirty cops.
I got to give him credit, I mean, or you could just call it top flight police work.
Yeah.
He definitely did things his own way.
Oh,
so he pulls me over, and here's why I never work on a weekend,
Uh-huh.
which is, by the way, the name of the chapter of this book, of this chapter in the book.
One step over the line.
He's looking for fireworks. It turns out they just made selling fireworks in Massachusetts illegal, but it's legal in New Hampshire.
And they think you're coming down from New Hampshire.
I got a tractor
on
trailer.
the 4th of July, smuggling fireworks.
Right, and it was July 1st, by the way. Or the weekend, whatever that Thursday, Friday was.
Yeah.
And why? Gosh. Because I wanted to be home for 4th of July. So did my friend. So he pulls us over, and I say to my friend, don't do anything. I'll go talk to him. And it's like kind of raining out, and I'm out there. I go, how you doing? He goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm moving. And I guess I didn't realize. He goes, well, where are you going? I go, well, I'm just rented a truck. I'm go get some of my brother's stuff from Connecticut, and then I'm moving down to New York. And he goes, well, you're going the wrong way to go to Connecticut. And I go, I don't know. I'm not from up here. I think I'm going the right way. And he starts talking. I take my shot. I go, all right, well, look, I don't know what I did wrong, but if you could just give me a ticket, I'm getting rained on and I'd like to leave. He goes, what's in the truck? I said, again, my moving stuff. He goes, open the truck. And I go, no. And he pulls a gun on me and he says, open the truck.
No shit.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't put it to my head. He pulls the gun out like, he goes, open the truck. Basically threatened me with the gun. And I go, shit. So I open the truck and he goes in. I know when the door goes up, I'm figuring my buddy's going to be jumping out the door running, but there was really like a really big hedge into some really, place. Maybe he could have probably cleared the fence, but I don't know. He would clear the area.
Now, are you shitting bricks at this point? I mean, are you kind of holding it together?
Yeah. You just go into adrenaline mode. You know, what do you got?
Your heart pump like is it?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I say, I told you, it's just my stuff in my, And he pulls out a pocket knife, cuts the box open. He goes, what is this? He goes, oh, wait, I know what this is. Now I'm shitting. I'm like, I'm getting arrested. So we get arrested. They take us down to a holding cell in the middle of the turnpike, which unfortunately, because it's a holiday weekend, there's no judge to get
You gotta
bond.
sit till
There's
Monday,
no
till the
food.
holiday.
Right. And they don't even have food. All they do is bring drunks in and out.
Ugh.
And, you know, one guy looks at me and goes, man, I was there long enough where I grabbed the blanket when the last guy left.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm taking that blanket. I'm looking at him going, buddy, let me tell you something. You're here for the night. I'm I'm not. And somebody else looked at him and goes, I wouldn't go near the blanket if I were you, pal. And so anyhow, and we can't get even food. They don't have food. So like they have to go out to Burger King
and get it for you.
Yeah. And then they come back and go, I forgot. And honestly, like one time we split it, they, you know, or unluckily the wives made them lunch. Then I definitely wasn't getting any of their lunch, you know?
Right.
And, but I had some Valiums in my DOP kit. And you want to hear a funny story? I was getting them. I go, can I brush my teeth? They give me, and I'd eat a Valium. And then I'd roll up an extra one and throw it into my buddy's cell next door and a piece of paper. The cop, after like 2 days, goes, what's this? And he finds all the Valiums now poured out on the bottom. And he looks at me and my friend. He goes, you'll need all these you can get where you're going. Don't worry.
Man.
And just left them. So Lynch picks us up and takes us to court after, you know, courts open back up on July 5th. And I go in front of the judge, and I've never even made a tie in my life.
You said you were in Salem or Haverhill at this time?
I think Haverhill.
Haverhill?
Yeah. I've never made a tie in my life. I'm a drug dealer.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to tie a tie.
Right.
So I go in front of the judge and I try to convince him that I'm going to bond out with my AAA card. You know, like, you know, you could get like, you know, traffic.
Yeah.
You know, the judge looks and goes, son, I don't think that's what they had in mind. So we go back into the police car, and Trooper Lynch is still there. Now it's me and my buddy in the back seat. And I'll never forget, he's got his trooper hat on, his big square jawed dumbass, you know, failure of a football player face, you know. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
He puts his arm over the seat and he looks over, he goes, you know where your boys are going now? Now, of course, not having vacationed in the area, what would I know?
Right.
Nor my friend. He goes, you're going to Lawrence House of Detention. He goes, you know what they got there? He goes, you have to shit and piss in buckets. They don't even have flushing toilets. And we're like, I mean, what do you say?
Yeah.
Right? You just in the back of the car, you're handcuffed.
Right.
You're going to Lawrence and you're going to learn a new type of, you know, bathroom, you know. So we get there and we walk in and we had, and they check, and this place is built in 1860. Okay. It's literally like, have you ever seen those old movies where like the Wild Wild West or something where like there's
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, where like there's dungeons.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And they never had, literally, they just got, though, thank God, they got the stainless steel combo sink in. They had this toilet seat with the little sink on the back.
Yeah.
I'm like fuck Lynch. I got a toilet.
Modern amenities.
Yeah, I got a toilet, bitch. And a little ball sitting there. And I remember that, you know, as I guess it was meant, you know, more and more the tiers of the bunks. So I'm on the fourth bunk because the new guy usually gets the top bunk,
right,
which put my nose next to the ceiling. And to my right was a rat hole. But no visitor ever showed up. And right to my left is just a bulb stuck in the wall, light bulb. And so I'm there. And turns out I did the research. It was the hottest it ever been since they built the jail in 1860.
God. Of course.
And there's no clothes. There's no prison uniforms.
Yeah.
I tell my brother who lives in Connecticut, you got to bring me some clothes. All I mean, you know, so he brings me some clothes. And what does he bring me? I mean, my little brother's the best of intentions, probably grabbed in his work and he's trying to grab some, whatever he had on the floor. He brings me a pair of really cute lime green shorts.
Great.
You know, right.
Yeah.
And I'm swearing, and I'm hot as balls. So I'm putting the shorts on. And one of the prisoners comes up, he goes, I got to tell you something. You look really cute in those green shorts. And I don't know if he was another kind of guy my age.
Yeah.
He was kind of, so everything's going chill and it's just hot. It's hot. It's so hot. And finally my cellmate, Jose, who was in there for stabbing his pregnant wife 7 times in the stomach.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
And by the way, he was 100% convinced that after this was all over, he had 5 other kids that he goes, she will have me back. We will be a family again. I go, buddy, you have the most understanding wife I've ever met in my life. I could see her getting her brushing her hair, looking at the 7 scars on her belly.
No.
Okay. I didn't want to tell. I was not going to tell Jose that I wasn't sure that was going to happen.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything. It's going to be
great.
Yeah, and so Jose looks at me one day and he goes, "Hey, you want to play cards?" And I go, and I go, whatever you want. I mean, I'm there. I'm only there 2 weeks, so this is going through the period.
Got it.
So he pulls out a deck of cards. He goes, "We're playing push-ups," and Jose is built like a tank, and he's younger than me. I've already had 2 shoulder surgeries now, but I mean, it wasn't the greatest, but I'm in shape because I'm jet skiing every day. I'm in shape because I'm playing racquetball.
Right.
I'm not in shape because I'm a tough guy from the inner cities of Lawrence that's, stabbing people like my own wife just to get through the day. And we start and wait. So the way you play push-ups with cards is you flip the card. Whatever you see is the face, right? So you get 8. You got 8 push-ups. You get 6. You get 6. So it's 1 through 10, and then Jack, Queen, King is 11, 12, 13, Ace, 15. And notice I've only played push-ups once in my life, but I remember the rules. Trust me. So we're flipping through them, and I mean, me and Jose are knocking down push-ups. We've gotten through most of the deck. We got our shirts off. Everybody in the place has got their shirts off. They're screaming. They're betting on it. It looks like something out of a scene out of a prison movie.
Yeah.
Right? Where I happen to be in jail.
Yeah.
And we're doing, and there's a puddle of sweat. And what happens? I get a high card. And I can't do it. It was 8 or 9. We almost went through the whole deck, which is like 400 push-ups, some crazy number if you add it up. And the way the rules work is, let's say you get a 10 and you can only do 8. You owe 2 to the next hand. If you pull it off, you're still in the game. So I get 8. I only do 6, whatever the number was. I owe 2 to the next hand. Jose gets whatever he gets, and he just sits down. He can smell, he can smell victory. He just, I'm done. Right. And I go, I flipped it over. The next card I got was a high card. It was like a jack. Right. So I'm trying, and I basically land face first in the puddle of our mutual sweat. I lose, but for the remainder of my stay, I got Jose cred. I got strong cred with the rest of the guys.
So is this when they talk to you now? You've been there 2 weeks. They pull you in. Is this where you start talking to DA and informant? Or
no.
So this happens a little later.
No, that's 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
take us there.
I want to tell you what happens here.
Yeah.
So here's the sad story. So my brother gets there. Finally, I make bond. It's $80,000, and I'm not going to leave without my co-drivers. 40,000 each. My brother said he's got the 40,000, but I said I can't leave. If I leave, I can't leave my partner. We 2 men in, 2 men out.
Right.
And I said, you're better off bailing him out, but you're not leaving him behind. That's not. First off, I know he's going to keep his mouth shut, but that's putting a strain on someone to do that when I leave and he stays. So I said, go get 80,000. He goes down to Florida, gets 80,000 out of my house or whatever chunks we got from wherever, comes back up, and I tell him he's got to bring the cash because I'm assuming the jail's not going to take a check.
Yeah.
He gets there, right? You would think. He gets there and they call me up, and it's like Friday afternoon. And I get up there and it's like it's like being in the 1860s. They didn't have a computer, and it's all these, like levels with bars and, you go, it's just a jail, but it's archaic, it's from another world. I remember this is 1988 and the jail was built in 1860. So my brother's there on the other side, and it's fresh air, it's freedom. And I'm running over to him. I go, let's go. Where's the money? He goes, Kenny, they're not going to let you go. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, they want to check, and I can't. It's 4:00 on a Friday. He just raced up there. He actually got pulled over with another friend in the car doing like 90 on the side of the road. And luckily the cop got a call because they had the 80 grand in the trunk. But, and so what? I'm there. I'm sitting there, and I look next to my brother, and there's a woman about 30 and her 2 little girls, and they're wearing sundresses.
Yeah.
And on the floor in front of me is a guy in the fetal position, grabbing his chest, convulsing with foam coming out of his mouth. He's having a heart attack. And I'm so flipped out about getting out of jail. And I'm running over to the guard, and I'm going, there's got, get me out, blah, blah. And he's not buying it. I'm jumping up on the bar. I'm climbing up to the second, up on the midway through the bars, yelling to my brother and stepping back and cross of this dying man. I mean, I'm literally stepping over him while his wife and 2 daughters are staring at him dying, and she's yelling at the nurse, the guard, do something. And he's saying, ma'am, in the most matter of fact, I understand I was out of my mind, but this guy's not even flinching, going, all I can do is give him 2 aspirin and call an ambulance. And I'm just jumping over the guy. And, I hate to admit it now because it's kind of like, in 2 weeks, I turned into an animal.
Yeah.
I mean, but you cage people up. I don't
want
know.
to get out. Right.
And they finally, the guards grab me and take me downstairs. So I told you how hot it was.
Yeah.
So that day goes by, and all of a sudden it's the next day, and it's so hot, and we're on the first tier. They're on the third tier, third tier.
Mm-hmm.
It's nighttime. All of a sudden, and we have these 50-gallon trash drums. They're just 50-gallon drums for trash and garbage. The guys on top are lighting anything they can find, throwing it off, trying to get it to hit the trash. And I'm sitting there, in the jail where you got your hands through.
Yeah.
Me and Jose got our hands through, talking like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I see it's like raining fire. And I go, what's going on? He goes, in his broken Puerto Rican accent, he said, well, man, they're trying to set the jail on fire so the guards will come get us out because it's so hot.
Yeah.
And don't forget, on tier 2, tier 3, they're hotter than tier 1, and we're dying. I'm from Florida, and I'm dying.
Yeah.
And I go, Jose, what if that doesn't work? What if it just catches on fire and we all die of smoke inhalation? What if they don't get us all out? You got to be kidding me. And now I'm watching these Firefly type of little things like matches, little piece of paper. And I'm like in the jail going,
How's it kind of fun falling down?
Don't make it. Go. I mean,
It's
no.
Yeah.
And we make it through the night. And that next Monday, my brother comes. I mean, I'm like, and he gets me out and we go home. And that starts the process of trying to get out. So now I got to hire lawyers. I'm bouncing around, Boston, trying to hire lawyers. One scumbag wanted me to sign my whole bond receipt over to him. Finally, I go to Florida and I go see my lawyer. I walk in, Michael Giletti, and he goes, well, you don't look any worse for wear. I go, yeah, I lost weight. Like I kept my jet ski tan. It's only been 2 weeks. And I hire him, and he hires another lawyer up here in Bruce McKinnon, whose father was a judge at one time, and he was also a prosecutor and a liaison to the DEA. And Bruce McMinnon, I'm missing it now. Anyway, we go back and forth over 2 years fighting the case. Here's something interesting. I know I brought in 1,458 pounds. My indictment was for 1,270.
Something went missing.
2 bails.
I wonder where that went.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought, well, maybe it dried up, but how did it dry up to equal exactly 2 bails? And we went to court, and now I'm going back and forth to court over 2 years. Every time what you want to do in a drug case is stall the case. The longer any criminal case, the longer you can put, and you see it happening in the political trials coming, and everybody doesn't fight that because everybody's busy trying to do the last case. So, but as a criminal defendant and as a drug lawyer, the best thing you can do is extend the case because you have a guy that has money and is looking at going to jail for a long time. So the longer you spread the case out, the longer the billing. And for the drug dealer, I'm happy to spend the money to stay out of jail. It's not like inner city brown and black youth or inner city kids that of any color or ethnicity, they don't have money. I mean, I don't know how many times I was handcuffed in the times I was going into trial with kids that probably were never going to get out of jail. And ends up, I go to court, and now the whole time I have to pay for my bill. How do I live? Right. So Bob Silverbullet had smuggled in, my same guy, Bob, a load of coke and had it stashed in DC. And what I would do is while I was going to court, I'd go up back to DC. He had a warehouse and a self-storage bin that had the coke and a warehouse and the bin next door that he put the money. I had the combination of both. So I would go to DC, rent a car, go out to the storage area in Tyson's Corner, open up the bin, invite in any customers or my drivers to either grab the coke to take it to one of my customers or have one of my buyers come to DC, get the money, put it in the other bin. And literally, I did it before while wearing a suit and tie to go either to or from court. And I remember
So
telling,
you're doing this all while you're
and I
fighting
remember
this
telling
case.
Bob, do you know what's going to happen if I get caught with a couple kilos of coke
You're done.
while I'm out on bond for 1,400 pounds?
Yeah.
So the day comes, we go to trial, and we're being tried in the Salem, Massachusetts. Salem. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's actually a tour. Like my lawyer goes, look, don't be a little put off of while you're testifying. There's going to be a tour group go through, which there was.
Yeah, it's where all the Salem witch trials were. So there's a lot of that up there.
Yeah, and so what I have to do is get up and testify to everything. And I leave out my friend. I say he never knew, but they say, well, how did you do this? I said, well, I loaded it into boxes, put it in the back of the truck, was driving down the street. You tell everything, and then what we were saying is that the cop could never have smelled the marijuana.
Right.
That he illegally pulled over. He said the light was broken. We had testimony from U-Haul. No light is ever broken ever in the history of U-Haul, and there was no sign of anything it hit, and that it wasn't broken when it left.
Did you said broken? He's talking about was it tail light?
Broken tail light.
Oh, wasn't that interesting? We have a lot of broken tail lights around here in Massachusetts. Anyway.
Yeah, no, listen.
Karen Reed case.
Right. Mark Lynch. If you look, the tail light set back behind the loading dock.
Yeah.
So to back into something, you'd have to have hit the loading dock before you got to the tail light. The tail light's an industrial tail light. And how he broke it with a tire iron, right? Yeah. Then so we're in court, and I just have to tell the truth. I loaded it. She goes, well, how did you're not a big, strong man.
Right.
How did you load 70 pound, 56? Because some of the bales were in 2 in 1 box. I go, simple. And I told her how I did it. I boxed it all up, and then I leaned it against the truck and flipped it in.
And slid it.
That's what I did. Right. And slid it to the front,
put the furniture in.
I didn't get the furniture. That's the problem. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that would have solved that problem. Had I done what I was supposed to. But what I thought I was going to do is my friend was living in Bedford Hills. So I go, look, we'll just take it down tonight to Bedford Hills, park it down there. I'll go to Manhattan, see my brother, and go fly back to him. But we can decide whether we want to rent a smaller truck,
right?
Buy furniture there. We have a staging area. We have a place to store it. Even if we left it for, whatever, we have a place to store the truck. So never made it. We go to court, and Lynch gets up and tells his story that he smelled the marijuana from the back of the truck. And then my lawyer gets up, who's an ex-DEA agent, ex-prosecutor, goes, really? He says, you smelled it through a truck. He goes, I've been on freighters with 200,000 pounds. I couldn't smell it. You're telling me that 20 feet away in the rain, through the cardboard box, through the plastic, through the bounce, through the fabric soft, you smelled it. And he says, yeah. And he goes, what's the largest drug case you've ever been involved in? He goes, 2 pounds. He goes, you, sir, have a nose like a Doberman. So you really, right? And remember, this is an evidentiary hearing. Right. This judge has to buy it or not.
Right.
Then Janice Howe, the prosecutor, gets up to cross-examine me, and she pulls out a thing of Carpet Fresh. And those of us that have used Carpet Fresh know a little bit goes a really long way, right? And I'm in this little courtroom built in the middle of the days of,
right.
It looks like Perry Mason in there. And she takes out a white manila folder and says, is this the stuff? I go, looks like it, because I'm trying to be,
right,
as evasive as possible and still tell the truth. She dumps it on there, and there's a pile of it, and the whole courtroom
just
stinks it, right?
Fresh.
Now she's got it, and it's sticking to her like glue. She's got it on her blouse. She's got it on her face. She's dropping it on the ground. It's all over the carpet. It's everywhere, and the whole place stinks. Judge calls recession, for lunch. Come back. Judge says, fruit of the poison tree. Rules in our favor. Me and my friend go to get up and scream, and the lawyers just hold us down. They go, this ain't Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Walks us out across the street.
Not doing that here.
Behind an alley. Right. This is massive. This is
Massachusetts.
Yeah. Behind a dumpster. Right. But here's what they said in the end. They go, listen, had you had 1 ounce of coke, you'd have went to jail.
Gone.
And he said, "This is a Constitution state." The
Well, it
judge
is.
went with the law,
Mhm.
but you know they weren't going to let drug cocaine come
Right.
through here. So we went home. They appealed it. It took 2 years to get my money back because I put up 80,000
Yep.
cash.
For you, Bill.
And I had the sword of Damocles, as I call it, more than once, hanging over my head for 2 years. Like, what, are they going to call me back up to Massachusetts, retry me? And I knew they were just doing it to try to hang on to my
They
money.
love retrying people here in the state of Massachusetts.
Well,
they like doing that.
If you want to have, I hate to make them make them famous, but if you Google, listen, here's one of the reasons that the trial took a little longer is the first judge had to recuse himself, because Lynch had taken a kid who was a murderer, threatened him with a gun to confess or did something, coerced him, to threaten him, and they went to court, and the kid was an admitted murderer, and they threw the case out because Lynch blew the trial. So
if you want police corruption in Massachusetts,
he's probably a senator for now.
Yeah, right.
So then, I go home, and of course, what do? I don't take 2 steps back. I keep working.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1992,
this is where
I get busted again.
Big time.
Yeah, I decided to get married to my girlfriend. We have a 1.5-year-old baby. We go on a honey. I throw her like a $40,000 wedding. You want a $10,000 or $15,000 honey? Remember, this is 1990s now, but it's still real money. I sold my car before I left, so I basically figured I'd go out, party, come home, make some money, and I go out and we have a nice honeymoon. We have a nice wedding. We come back. And I said, well, I got to go back to work. And my ex-wife looks at me and says, listen, don't go. Stay here. I'll get a job. You'll get a job. I'll eat.
Basically trying to get you out of the business.
Yeah, she goes, I'll eat white bread and bologna. I'll never forget. She goes, I'll eat white bread and bologna sandwiches. You have a daughter. We're married. Don't go. And what do?
You went out and did it.
Yeah, I have a custom-built work truck with secret compartments. I have my driver, Paco, the Peruvian guy. I know, it didn't work out well for him. And we go out to Texas looking for a load of weed. But things had changed. Instead of getting 1,000 pounds for 250,000 and bringing it to Ohio, the market had shifted. Nobody wanted that weed. They wanted, like high-end California type of green, Sensimilia. And we could get Texas was the Tex-Mex border area was supplying that. You can get it for like $800-900 a pound. So I buy like anywhere from 90 to 80, 90, 100 pounds, whatever I could get, take it to Ohio, leave it with my partner. And I didn't care if it took them 2 months to sell it. If I was going to make $500 a pound, make, $20,000 or whatever a month, and then come back and do it again. And what I didn't know is Terry had been busted. My partner, Ohio, got turned in by one of his friends, and he had got busted with 1,000 pounds of weed or something of that, some large amount that another friend of mine had been on the run and had come back in the country and put this deal together and basically went behind my back. I even remember calling Terry going, hey, is Kelly working up there? Because if Kelly's working, I'm not coming. He's an accident waiting to happen.
Right.
He's been on the run. He's been drugged up. He's just not stable. Of course, Terry's gotten busted. So he's not, here's what happened. And the funny thing is, doing these podcasts, about 2 months ago, after doing Matt Cox's podcast, Terry found me on the internet, called me up.
Kidding.
He's living in North Carolina. I was the godfather to his son, and I'm going up there. He goes, come on up. All expenses on me. We're going to have a great time. I go, buddy, you cost me $80,000 in legal fees, and I think you owe me lunch, but I don't have any hard feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm going to tell you something that when people say, oh, you turned me in or you did this. No, you did it by being a criminal. You did it by deciding to work with the mob. You did it because you decided to sell drugs. Whether your decision was because your family had done it for 200 years or because you needed money because you're Les Miserables, Jean Valjean, all for a loaf of bread. you're the one that put yourself in the position, and the system eventually will get everybody. So, or I know some guys still doing it, but you know what I mean. So anyway, Terry's situation was he had a big construction company, he had a house on one side, and his father lived on the property, and he had a barn in the middle, and the cops found the weed on the property. So they were going to put his father, his mother, him and his wife in jail, and his 4 kids were going to be orphans.
Wow.
Or he turns me in. And 15 people already had turned him in, and I was the king.
So now everybody's just piling on.
Yeah. I get up to Ohio. There's nobody left for me to turn in. Right. So, right. So I don't agree. You know, the cops come in. We need you to, work with us, talk. I mean, they're threatening me. I go, I'm not saying nothing.
Right.
Because I've been trained since I was a kid. Keep your mouth shut. Don't bail out the first chance you can get, because then they think you're the money guy. Remember, the cops, when they offered me bail the first time, I said, I don't have any money. You know why I said that? Because they didn't know I smuggled the weed in. They didn't know I was the one that was smuggled. All they thought was I was in the truck, and they didn't know which one of us was Mr. Big, right?
So if you come up with the money, they're gonna go, right, well, that's the guy.
And if it takes me weeks to come up with the money, obviously I'm not Mr. Big.
Right.
So those are things we were taught as kids, you know. So I'm in Ohio. I drive up there, and I'm coming up from Texas, and I see a car drive by me, and it's got like 4 big guys in this little car, and my stomach just goes, ugh.
So your intuition.
Yeah, carload of cops.
Right away, carload of cops.
Yeah, they could have been the football team out to get burgers.
Right.
High school football team. I didn't even get it. And so I tell my driver, because we had loaded up in Texas and made it to Ohio, which is 3 days drive or whatever. I go pull over, and we go to the lake right behind a Taco Bell. There's it's right on Lake Erie, and I'm just watching the waves come in, and I'm just thinking, we've never been to a hotel before. We always go to Terry's house. Why a hotel? Well, he had said once before that the kids were getting too smart. When we started, we had no kids.
Right.
We had high school girlfriends. Now we are. So I go to the hotel, and I remember the second thing. I go to the front desk to call either Terry or somebody, not going to use the phone, right?
Right.
In the room, and I get a handful of quarters. And I remember the lady looking back, sliding underneath the desk while she's handing me the quarters, and I'm putting them. I'm calling home. I think I was calling my wife or my girlfriend at the time. No, it would have been my wife. I just got married. And I go up to the room, and I'm waiting with Paco, and Terry comes in, and he's wearing a raincoat. Kind of strange, like foul weather jacket. Not.
So he's working for them at this point.
Yeah. He's brought me in.
Okay, I got
and
all right.
And
this is the setup.
Yeah, and he lights the roach. As soon as he lights the roach, the doors explode in. 200-pound SWAT guys on top. You wouldn't believe how fast they do this.
Oh shit!
Boom. Yeah, you're down and out, and everybody's handcuffed. I mean, rodeos don't happen that fast. So, you're hogtied. Yeah, they had me all in the, and they had my weed. They found in my pocket. They found the keys to the secret compartment. They found a matchbook from the Texas border. My cell phone I had used. I mean, everything you train not to do. Don't leave the keys on you. Don't have any money and any notes on you. Don't save anything from the last hotel you were at,
Yeah.
And they didn't need that, it turned out, because I didn't know at that time, but I'd find out later that it was part of a big conspiracy, major case. They take me to jail. I'm in jail for months trying to get bond, and I get finally my indictment. They pull me out of my cell. There's some guy there, looks angry and mean, not wearing security blue or green prison uniform. So, he's the processor. They go, "Are you Ken Behr?" I'm thinking, who else could I be? You just pulled me out of my cell. Right? I mean, I'm like, is there anybody else in there?
Yeah.
What is this?
Behind
the magic trick?
He's hiding behind the toilet.
Yeah. Here, poof, here's another guy. So he hands me, and Bill, the guard, who's kind of like my buddy, because I'm like, look, at least I live in a little house, I'm just like Bill, I just go out in cigarettes and fly around in Learjets, but I'm no different than him. So I'm looking at the indictment. He looks at me. He goes, "You gonna be all right, kid?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "Well, you're looking at 55 years." And I'm like, what? He goes, we're putting you on suicide watch tonight. And I go, I'm like, no need. I'm not.
Yeah.
First I'm thinking is, how do you kill yourself? That sounds like a lot of work. I don't have it,
Right.
No, I was never thinking of killing myself. So I go back and I read my indictment, and I'm looking at RICO 25 years. So I get my lawyers. I hire another lawyer up in Ohio, Jack Bradley, and I got my lawyer in Miami, Mike Giletti, who I've used on a few different cases.
Yeah.
And on the Massachusetts case, on a few other things. And I'm in court, and I see this lawyer, and he's really sharp looking, and the black kid chain next to me, he looks at me, he goes, you know who that is? I go, no. He go, that'd be Jack Bradley. He's a badass lawyer. When I get some money, that's who I'm getting. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if he's any good, but boy, does he look good. He looks like a lawyer, There's some schlebs up there talking. When you're looking at a court, like it's like the judge is up here like Caesar, and all these lawyers are, and they're like thumbs up, thumbs down, motion denied, motion. And me and the kid next to me, and I'm chained up with everybody, got out of the paddy wagon, all chained together, and do the little walk. And it turns out when I get home, my mom makes a phone call to a family friend that's a big legal family from New Orleans. And they actually knew Jack Bradley and worked a couple cases with them and hooked me up with Jack.
Yep.
So Jack, now I have two lawyers, Michael Giletti and Jack Bradley. Jack's from Ohio, Michael's from Miami. And I'm still got nothing going on. I still haven't made bond and still trying to get bond. And one of the guy in the cell next to me pulls me aside, and he goes, and this was a defining moment. He's got clear, lucid white skin. And he's tattooed like in the worst prison tattoos. He had me go to the library and get him books because they wouldn't let him out. Turned out he had done 15 years in Angola, in Louisiana, the worst prison. I mean, like Amnesty International, Guatemala's got better. It's Angola, especially back then when he did time in the 70s and 80s. Horrible place. It's built in it's an old plantation, like 1,800 acres in the swamps of Louisiana. And he says to me, listen, you know how many times you have a 1.5-year-old daughter? And I said, yeah. He goes, you know how many times I saw my daughter was 1.5. You know how many times I saw her in the 15 years? I go, no. He goes, once.
I was going to say once or zero.
Yeah. He goes, listen, look around. You see these people? It's not who hasn't ratted. It's who hasn't ratted yet. He said, the mores and values you're clinging to died a lifetime ago. And really, a year before, Sammy the Bull Griovano had ratted out John Gotti.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you're looking at 25 years, when you're looking at 3 years, you go, 3 years, I can do 3. You'd end up doing 2, 2.25. You're
out walking around, right?
And lose some weight. He says, the mores and values that you're clinging to, like I said, died a lifetime ago. He goes, if you go home and you can save your ass and protect your daughter, he goes, you do whatever you have to do. But if you ever come back into the drug, if you ever go sell drugs again, he goes, then you're nothing more than a snitch and a rat, and you deserve everything you're going to get. So I kind of absorb that. Still, I don't have, I still don't want to really turn anybody in. I don't know what to do. So I even call home and tell my best friend, who's the biggest mouth in town, listen, buddy, I'm looking at 25 years. I don't know what's going to come of this, but you better tell people not to talk to me, because if the cops told me go bust him and I go say I try, but the guy, knows I poisoned my well, right? I made it said nobody would talk to me in my hometown because I grew up with everybody. We all went to high school together. They were, I didn't want to put them, anyway, so I poisoned that well. I ended up getting out. I go home and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no car. Remember, I sold my car. I lost 40,000. I spent 40,000 on the wedding, 10 or 15,000 on the honeymoon. I lost about 80, 90,000 in the weed that got busted. I had to pay $9,000 for the bond, and I had to put a retainer down on the $80,000 or whatever the lawyers were going to be. I was broke.
Yeah,
and
a lot of money.
Yeah, and remember, that's back when that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's 30 years ago. And that in numbers today, a Porsche back then was a 911. The most expensive Porsche you could get was 38,000 roughly. Now it's
138,000.
Yeah, no, 200.
Yeah, 200,000.
So I come home, and I mean, I'm basically by a $400 canary yellow Plymouth station wagon with no air conditioning. I'm painting houses. I'm working at a friend's repair shop doing oil changes, spark plugs, stuff like that. And I get a phone call from my old yacht broker buddy, Dave Jackson, the one that had introduced me and Sandy to Donnie Steinberg and that whole group. And Dave had me come to his house several months earlier, and he got busted for trying to. The Fed, if you're a yacht broker, you're a legal person, you're even a lawyer, and I come to you and say, I'm going to pay you cash, and you're going to sell me a boat, and I'm going to use that boat to smuggle drugs. You just can submit. You're just as guilty as the person using it. That's conspiracy. That's the same thing as me knowing you're going to rob a bank and not calling the police. You're part of the gang. At that point, you're part of the gang.
Yeah.
Same thing that happened to Dave. So Dave, I remember one time he has this 5,000 square foot mansion. Dave was selling Lear jets and 100-foot yachts and had houses in Montana and Florida, and beautiful, lifestyle. He brings me up to this little bathroom in the top floor of the house, and he's chopping up a gram of coke. He goes, "Hey, can you get me a kilo?" And I'm thinking, me and Dave have only partied and done family stuff together.
Right.
Dave's not a drug dealer. He's a yacht broker.
Yeah.
And I go, no, I can't get any kilos. And he goes, you want to do a couple lines? I go, nah, I don't do coke.
Right.
It wasn't a coke day user, and I walk out. I remember walking into his circular driveway with the big gate and the guest house and all that and the mansion, going, how cute. Dave tried to set me up, Well, instead of 4 months later, when I get busted, Dave calls me up and goes, how'd you like to work for the DEA? And I'm in my living room. My wife's in the kitchen. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want my wife to hear that.
Yeah.
And remember, when you...
So I'm sorry, I'm just going to recap really quick. So you get out, you make bail, you're waiting for your trial at this point, correct? And you're looking at, they said 55, but you're probably going to look at like 25 years.
Yeah, it's 20. Right, Rico's 25 minimum mandatory, but the state version could have been less. But they basically pulled me aside before I walked out the jail and said, listen, we want Kelly Vickers. We know because he was in Kelly, the guy that got busted with me, that Terry had set up, the same other partner that was, he introduced me to my ex-wife. We were drug running partners. We had done drug smuggling trips together. Right. He had gotten in trouble for a cocaine smuggling trip and left the country. So he'd been on the run for years.
Got it.
So he ended up getting me busted kind of by bringing that big load up there or whatever happened. But yeah, I was the kingpin and they wanted him and they wanted me. And I'm looking at 25 years now.
So you said your buddy calls you and says, if you want to work for the, work for the DEA.
My mother had bought me a suit right out of high school, similar to the one I went to court with, probably the same suit. I finally learned, by the way, in 1988, getting busted, the one thing I learned from getting busted was not to quit running dope, but how to tie a tie.
You got very good at tying ties.
It's a slow process to go from drug runner to legit. It takes time. First you do the tie.
It's natural progression, right?
Yeah. You learn to shave properly, get a job.
Right.
The key. So so anyway, we go we lost me. So I go down to and I end up Dave's handler. So the way the country works is the states are broken down into sections. So like in Florida, you have the Northern District, the Central District, and the Southern District. So Southern District is all of South Florida and the Caribbean for the DEA. Central District is what's Tallahassee down through Gainesville, Tampa, that area. And then Northern is Jacksonville in that area.
Right.
So whoever had set Dave up for the boat, for the reverse sting on the boat, that Jim Kane, the DEA agent, was from Jacksonville. So then I had to go to Jacksonville. So I get in my car. It's like a 6-hour ride in the burnt paint yellow Canary station wagon.
AC.
No AC, wearing a suit. I get out of the car and let's say I'm ragged, right? Who's standing there but the 2 arresting officers from Ohio, the head of the drug task force and the big guy that landed on me in the room. And there's Jim. Jim looks at Jim Kane. First time I meet him, he goes, look at you, a drug dealer in a suit. Looks like a pig with spats or something like that, a hog with spats. And I'm like,
oh boy,
how do you do? My name's Ken Behr. And he goes, well, my name's Jim Kane. and you'll know me as Captain Bobby Burke to you and all you'll ever meet. And your new name is Kilo Bravo. Come with me. So I'm like, all right. So I get with him. We take the guys from Ohio, put them on like a 54-foot sport boat, had all these boats in the marina that he confiscated. And I've been on boats a lot. So I take off my shoes and I look like a pirate wearing a suit from Saks Fifth Avenue, like shirt blown in the wind, no shoes. Take the boat out for a spin, come back, and we sit in the salon. And basically I hear what the deal is. The deal is that I'm going to work for the DEA out of Jacksonville. Anything that I bust, the Lorain County Drug Task Force will get credit for, and also asset sharing. And that's the key, what people don't understand. Drug busting is about, yes, they want to get bad guys off the street, but what they really want is drug dealers want to make gold, drive Porsches, buy houses, land, planes, and the cops, the feds want the gold, the houses, because they want to sell it. It's how they, it's the drug wars. How do they fund the drug wars?
Right.
By selling off all your crap. And, it's about, I was trained in the beginning, it's about assets. Find me guys with, we still were told to bust drug, but, and we became like what Captain Bobby, Jim Kane, AKA Captain Bobby Burke did was he had a team. He had me, he had David Jackson, the yacht broker, who was just going to be a yacht broker. And he had this other guy who I call in the book Sabo, who was one of the biggest smugglers in the world, who had been busted, now was working for him. And he was a white Jamaican his father was an ambassador to the country. He was an educated guy. And between the three of us, we became kind of their dream team, because you see, you can't, a lot of times, like I've been doing it since I was 18. If I sat down with another drug, runner,
right,
I could talk stuff that only I would know. Like the original keys were wrapped in duct tape. The key, and then they started putting them in white plaster from casts. Then when the fiberglass cast stuff came out, they started wrapping them in fiberglass. And if it had a condor on the front, it was Carlos later. And the metal, is from, Ocho and later. And the the orange buds and the red buds. And if the boxes were made, if the pot came in Marlboro or Parliament boxes, it was that red buds from Santa Marta. I knew that. I was there. Yeah. And so we need to fill in those holes, these guys. So the DEA, Captain Bobby, was supposedly an ex-Vietnam guy who was a boat captain. He was running everything, and me and David and all the other guys were his workers. So he'd come in and out for cameos. And that's how I started working for the DEA.
How long did you do that for?
2 years. 2 years.
And that basically took care of your case.
2 years. There's no days off when you're working for the DEA. You're under duress. There's no, how there's no holiday? There's absolutely no holiday. You're sitting there looking at 25 years. You have the sword of Damocles hanging over your head. And as he said to me one day, hey, what do you got for me lately? Because snitching's like selling. You miss a day, you look like crap.
Right.
And I had to come up with my own cases. But I also was put into cases. I'll give you an example of some of the things that happened. Like one time, I was strange. Like I was in jail in Ohio, and some guy comes up that I would never know again and barely knew. He goes, listen, I know you're looking at 25 years. I'm not getting out. I know you're getting bonded out. Here's the name of a drug dealer in Detroit, and here's his phone number. This guy owes me money. I want to get even with him. If you get a chance to make a deal, put this in it. And that happened. And they called me up and they go, hey, you got good job on that guy. And I was like, I didn't even know who it was. And I had friends coming up to me going, hey, I know you're going to jail and everything, but listen, this guy's a real asshole. I know this deal's going down. I'll give you another example. One time I was in Amsterdam through Sandy. Had sent me to Amsterdam, or he knew I was going to Europe. He said, look up this friend of mine in Amsterdam. He's like a son to me. And I'm thinking, like a son to you? I thought what was my position? I thought I was like, all right, this guy, Mario. And he almost got me killed in Amsterdam because he owed some Russians money and I happened to be standing next to him. And I was like, forget Mario. Well, years later, all of a sudden, Mario's calling me. He's in Fort Lauderdale and he's, what am I doing? So me and Sabo go down there, and another friend, the guy Frankie from New Orleans, got out. He was out. He ended up personally, the guy that got busted in New Orleans, my best friend, ended up getting violated on that 1.5 gram charge, and he did 10 years in jail because of his drug habit.
Wow.
Yeah, he died. He died at 44 in a dentist chair. He had done 25% of his life in prison for 1.5 grams and a big mouth. Anyway, so what does Mario tell me? He's got somebody coming in with 200 kilos of coke, and they're here in Fort Lauderdale, and he needs a place to sell it. You know, I mean, I don't know these people from Adam, and now that I wish you never would have told me, but you did. So I set that up, and this poor husband and wife had taken a sailboat like 4,000 miles from Amsterdam all the way to Fort Lauderdale. The grandparents were watching the kids. They had 200 kilos in it. They smuggled it in, and I got the call. So I called Captain Bobby in Jacksonville. I go, look, there are 200 kilos here. Well, what do you think he wants? He wants the boat brought to Jacksonville.
Right.
Why? Because he wants the asset. I go, listen, Jim, I'm a great con guy. I'm, the world's greatest car salesman, whatever. But I'm not going to convince someone to just sail 4,000 miles to now sail another 400 up the river. Right. So he goes, all right, we're coming down. So he comes down. Now he has to cut in the Fort Lauderdale office. As a matter of fact, when I got done meeting them in Jacksonville, I had to go report to the Fort Lauderdale office because I was working undercover. And you know what the first thing the Fort Lauderdale office says to me? What are you doing working for him? Why aren't you working for us? I go, and
because everybody wants a cut of the assets.
And I'm kind of like, I don't understand. I don't know, sir, but I'm sure I'm not the one that makes those decisions. You called Agent Kane and asked,
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm on the boat and I'm talking to, I get a phone call from Jim Kane, Captain Bobby. I go, what's up? He goes, you got to move now. I go, why? He goes, customs is on the dock. So they don't, they're going to see. Yeah, they don't like it. So I bring the guy up.
Oh, no.
The guy opens the truck. Yeah. I open up a bag. I see a little sign that there's the kilos of hash are there. I pull my hat up and down. And right in front of customs, like I could see the two customs guys.
You're trying to get this thing done before they get it done.
Yeah. And they're not dressed in customs uniforms. They're two, two construction workers.
Right.
So that's an example. I said to him afterwards, I go, so how'd it go? I call him up after we always debrief. I go, what did customs have to say? I go, yeah, they wanted to cut the boat in thirds because they're already going to cut the boat up with the DA. Right. So another case, we did same thing. I set up this guy. I mean, it's a long, involved story, but when I get done, I'm in Palm Beach, and they took down the guy, and we had the takedown. Cops running out, freeze, hands up, and I'm sitting in the West Palm Beach head of the narcotics division there, and the guy's looking at me. He goes, "Kid, oh, they had me wired up, so now I have to take the bugs off me." And he goes, "Kid," he goes, "you're good." He goes, "You're really good." He goes, "Do me a favor." He goes, "Don't ever go back."
Yeah.
Because now here's what happened. Now I know how it all works. I know
the ins and outs.
But then he says to me, "Why don't you come work for us?" So let me give the listeners an idea of what happens when how it works.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm going to do a phone call to a mark where I'm trying to set them up, or someone's trying to do this to you or me. First thing they have to do is, and you talk about this in the Karen Reed case, the tape has to be. So I use a brand new tape because it can't have any other sounds on it, because some engineer could say, "Oh, this is already recorded on once." Right. And then I have to say, test, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, test. Shut it off, rewind it, go through the test, prove the tape works. Then I'm at, let's say, a payphone back in the day. I say, I turn the tape back on. Okay, it's September 14th, 2024, 9:45 at night. I'm calling from phone number 777-5 what up. I'm calling Bill Bixby. We're going to talk about smuggling a load of cocaine. It's for 200 kilos. His end of the deal is going to be this. My end's going to be that. Shut it off. Dial
all for the record. Yeah.
And so there's continuity
right.
of the tape. So then I call and I talk to Bill Bitsky about what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. Hang up the phone. Then I turn the machine back on. Call ended 3:30, 9:15 on September 14th. Length of call, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Call ending. Boom. That way, if anybody looks at the tape, they can say,
all
right, it's not been altered.
It's not been
and which,
chopped up.
according to the Karen Reed.
Well, the Sallyport video, I was telling you about that earlier. It's all cut up, it's reversed, and there's time missing.
That's
this way it keeps the continuity.
That's the way it's supposed to be done. So that way you know, you don't have these problems. So even if you record somebody in person, if I would have a little micro recorder with a little micro wire, I wouldn't be with any police officer, you know, like what you see in normally. I mean, yes, I was wired up on that one bus, but normally I just carry a tape recorder and just turn it on and do that same speech.
Right.
So we do those busts and a couple others. And then one guy comes to me, and this is the only guy I busted that was actually a friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in years. He had actually done time. He was an old man. He was a smuggler. He was in jail with my friend Frankie Montleone, the guy that did 10 years for $1.5 grams, and sent some pictures, and we knew each other. He gets out, and I hadn't seen him. I never did a drug deal with this guy in my life. He comes to me and he goes, "Hey, I got 125 pounds I want to sell." And I go, "Dude, I've been busted and I'm working for the cops."
Yeah.
You know what he says to me? "Oh yeah, I understand. You know, it's okay. You know, as long as you don't if you turn everybody in your own case in, but not anybody outside, you know." And I'm thinking, I'm just
telling you, I'm working with the cops.
And, you know, then I start thinking, I mean, because, you know, when you're doing this stuff, like I had to get on like brain pills. I mean, the stress is monumental. I got a 1.5-year-old baby. I'm looking at 25 years. My wife and I's marriage that I just got married is now falling completely apart. She's looking to leave me because she needs to find security for her and her baby, and you know, my daughter, and the world's coming apart. And this guy comes in, and I'm like, so I'm thinking, is he a cop? Is he a setup?
Right. Trying to set you up.
Yeah, I mean, or are they checking me? You know?
Yeah.
So I turn him in, and I said, "Hey, listen, do me a favor. You got to take it to Jacksonville. I can't leave because I'm on, you know, they're watching me." So I'm not going up there. Let him drive himself to his own death. So he does. He gets busted. He says, "Hey, I'm going to set up this friend of mine in Jamaica who's a smuggler." So what happens? The DEA decides to send me to Jamaica to try to shake out this, see if there's anything there. So you guys understand there's two ways to go into a country. If you're a DEA agent, you have to go in and say, "I'm a DEA agent." If you're going into Russia and you're a spy, like, what was his name? Paul, the guy that was kept in jail forever.
Oh, yeah. I don't know his last name, but who you're talking about.
Anyhow, the Russians claim that he went into the country unannounced. He was he was spying, but he wasn't a registered spy.
Right.
So when you go into someplace like Jamaica, if you're American agent, if you're an American federal agent, you have to declare yourself, right? Because you're in foreign country. But if you send somebody like me, you don't have to declare yourself. So they send citizens down. I did connect with the DEA down there, and the dumbass has me meet him in the middle of Kingston. Now, you understand, I'm the only white guy in the entire area meeting a black Jamaican in a Range Rover that's probably everybody in town knows is the head of the DEA.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy that drives, you know, it's Jamaica. It's like coconut.
Right,
everybody knows him, the guy that's the DEA. He's got the green Range Rover.
Right.
I mean, the Range Rover even looked like a military vehicle. You couldn't have looked more, you know. And I'm like, dude, this is where you have me meet you? Not in the parking garage. So I go back to my room, and the Jamaican guy's not showing up. Finally, I call Jacksonville, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know." Well, all of a sudden, I get a knock at the door, and I don't know if the Jamaican guy heard me talking to Jacksonville. I don't know if the guy that sent me down there told him, or that he saw me with the head of the DEA down there in the middle of the town square. But he starts yelling at me, "You are bad man. You know what happens to people, you know." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I heard you, or I know who you are," or something. And in Jamaica, they don't have a lot of guns and bullets. So they're very expensive, and they're life in prison. So what they do is they have what's called a machete party.
Yeah.
Where they take you out, and you're the party.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm telling the guy, "Listen, man, I have people in the grill. I don't need this. I've been sitting here for 3 days waiting for you in this fucking hotel room. And, you know, you're the one that's causing the problem. I'm trying to argue the point, you know." And he's like, "You're a bad man. You're a bad man." And I go, "What? with this bad man shit, let me know. Do you want to do a deal or not? I'm going to go do the deal. I said, I was on the phone talking to my people about me leaving the area and going to the grill where I have my own run-ins up there. Guy leaves. And I'm like, son of a bitch, So I call back to the headquarters in DEA Jacksonville, and turns out Jim Kane is not around. I mean, they just sent me down like, go down there, get a plane ticket and tell me what happens. I did have, so I felt. So I call him up, and it's Peter was the supervisor. And I go, listen, I can save this thing. I got this. I'll call the guy back. He goes, I'm not taking any chances with one of my operatives. No way. He goes, walk out to the bar and sit at the first stool. Now remember, I think I'm completely alone, right? I go sit down, and there's a little bar in like the courtyard of the hotel. It's a little old school, 40s looking thing. And there's a nice looking Jamaican couple next to me. And the man and the woman look over and they go get your bags and come here right now. And I go, huh? They go, get your suitcase, pack your stuff. We're leaving. And I'm not going anywhere with them.
Like,
And then the guy looks over and goes, Kilo Bravo. Go get your suitcase.
Now you knew. Yeah.
Right.
Time to go.
So I get my shit. And I've never, as I say in the book, I've never went from sitting in a hotel lobby to being on a plane so fast in my life. I went right through customs, right through,
shit.
Boom, boom. We went through doors like Walmart shoppers on a Sunday sale and like a Christmas Black Friday. And I flew back, and you know what? It didn't matter that what happened. I got my notch on my gun belt. I went down there. I did my thing. I didn't make the deal happen, but no, corporate Jacksonville DEA was happy with me.
Let's do this. We'll get close to wrap up. Tell me the Eddie Murphy story really quick, because you said you had an Eddie Murphy story. So we're going to end with an Eddie Murphy story.
All right. I'll leave off the 10,000 kilo bust out of Canada, and we'll go for the Eddie Murphy story.
I want to hear the Eddie Murphy story.
So, and this is it more, it's better. So there's a couple ways to smuggle drugs. One is bring it right into port, right? And just hope nobody pulls you over. And that used to work in the beginning. The other way is throw it out of a plane like an American.
Like you were saying in your friend's yards.
Right, land a kilo, right. So right where my friend lived, where he had the kilo land in his yard, and right where I lived about, a couple miles south, there was a golf course in the middle. And then the city morgue and a mobile home park. Just east is Fort Lauderdale Airport. Then there's I-95, the railroad tracks, and then again, Oakwood Golf Course. And on the other side of Griffin Road would have been Frank Lindbergh's house where the kilo landed, and the other side is the canal. Actually looked at 40,000 pounds in a house off the canal one day. I didn't even see it. They just had a scale that came out like on a cord, like 100 yards, and there was bales. Anyway, what we do is we fly, like this was a deal we did. We have a small plane. We're coming from the Bahamas. So we're going to land in Fort Lauderdale Airport. Obviously, they're looking for drugs now. This is that time, mid 80s. So what you do is you come in for a landing and you do you want to do a go around. In other words, you're not comfortable with the landing and you want to try it again. There's never, rarely is a tower going to tell the pilot, no, you're going to have to land it. And the pilot's going to go, I'm going to have an arrival, not a landing. Landings you walk away from, arrivals you don't. So, but what happens is the plane's now below 200 feet. So he skims off the top of the trees like he's coming off the airport, not going to land, go over to come around. At that exact moment, the kicker in the back will open up a side door, and whether it's a DC-3 or a small plane, the plane's set up with a side door to let people in and out, and you kick the bales out. And this time it was 2 duffel bags full of coke. I think there was like 40 kilos or 80 kilos. I can't remember. Whatever it was 20 or 40 and 40 pounds, 20, whatever, in 20 and 20 or 40 and 40 in each duffel bag. Duffel bags have Callium sticks stuck to them. So I'm in my friend's pickup truck, and Nathan, who owns the load. Oh, so my house is, like I said, right there. So he goes, hey, you want to help us, pick up this load of coke? And, there's, your mother says if you jump off you're going to jump off,
If your friends jump off.
Yeah, well, you say, I don't know, does he break his legs or is he all right? So I'm doing this basically to get some coke to sell from the deal. I didn't even get paid. And I did it more for the excitement. And so, because I'm an adrenaline junkie, I race cars, do shit like this. So I bring the pickup truck along the side road. My other buddy Nathan sitting there with his big Mercedes, and his brothers and my other friends in there. And when they're doing that, remember the package is coming out. The plane's doing a minimum of 140 miles an hour. The package weighs 40 to 80 pounds. So you don't want to be standing in the golf course going like this. So you got to hug a tree. You're all dressed in black. They should be wearing crash helmets. And, when that shit hits the trees, it'll just break branches, still hit you. All of a sudden, next thing I know, here comes my brother coming running out of the woods, man, with a duffel bag, throws it in the back of the pickup truck, jumps in the back, hit it. I drive down the street, get around the corner. He jumps in the front seat. Now, remember, if a cop pulls up behind us, there is a big black duffel bag with green Calium sticks on it.
It's going to stick out.
Yeah, we get to my townhouse, which is just a mile down the road, get up, bring it in, rip open the bags. I get a kitchen knife. We cut everything open, grab some plastic baggies, throw some blow in a bag. And Nathan goes, "Let's get out of here." I'm like, "It's 8 o'clock. I go, right? He goes, "Well, we have tickets to the Eddie Murphy concert." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I got 4 tickets. You guys want to go?" We go, "Yeah." So we take the duffel bags of Coke, throw them away, put the Coke in suitcases so it looks normal, like, move in and out of a building. Put it in the trunk of his car. We all jump in my car and we go see Eddie Murphy. And he's up there dancing. He's got the red leotard on. And Nathan sitting next to me turns to me after about 45 minutes to an hour and he goes, "You think we should go?" And I go, "Well, I mean, it's a great show, but you kind of left like $1 million worth of Coke in the trunk of your car, whatever the street value was at the time." And I go, "Yeah, I guess we should go." So we did that. But, I just, I want to say that with all that, even though I can sit here and laugh about it, I've never been comfortable with being a snitch.
Yeah.
I always say my tombstone's going to say, "Here lies a used car selling, drug dealing snitch." And then right below the toilet seat, it might say, "An author." Yeah. Now I'm somebody. But, someone asked me the other day, what was more exciting, selling drugs, right? I had a cigarette, Lear jets, private planes, parties, racing cars. But I did my best. I worked hard at fixing my life. And it meant like, the same work ethic, what do you do? And I had an obligation to Dennis Kavanaugh, the arresting officer who gave me a second chance, and Jim Kane, the DEA, who was working hard to give me giving me cases to get me to a point where I could get off. And so, or at least get I thought I'd get some time. I ended up getting probation. They said it was 14 cases and, 10,000 kilo bust in Ohio that I wasn't originated of, but they had me there as an actor on a stage. But I've never been comfortable with it. I mean, I still walk into restaurants and, never sit with my back to the door. I stare at every person everywhere I go. I mean, I'm not doing it because I'm afraid somebody from that day is going to come get even with me, but because I grew up a drug dealer and, I'll look over my shoulders it's my human nature, I mean, I got out of an elevator earlier today and there was this big muscular guy in there, looked like a special agent or, special ops. And neither one of us wanted to get out of the elevator first. And finally he went like that to me and I got out, but I go, that guy's, he's not, I can tell there's something about him, So that's
your guts now kicking in.
Yeah. And, and I have PTSD about, but I mean, writing the book has helped me get through the PTSD.
Yeah. And you can find the link to Ken's book. And I please, everybody, if you can, if you're really interested in hearing more about Ken's story, it's attached to the top of the chat here. It's called One Step Over the Line. And this is Ken Behr. And it's been a pleasure sitting down with you. And you came a long way. And I got to say, Ken is a man of his word. I mean, he flew up from where you're still down in Florida, flew up from Florida to New York, traveled all the way over here from New York to Massachusetts. And he kept telling me the last couple of days, he goes, "I am tired, but I'm going to do this and I will be there to do this live." So I really do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun spending time with you.
Well, I want to tell your fans so they know I came because of you and because
I appreciate that.
You're just a solid guy and a creative guy. And I wanted to be next to someone that's intelligent, creative. And I wanted to do the interview. And I just, this is just the beginning for you. You know what I mean?
Wow, I appreciate that.
Just the beginning. You're a great interviewer. You're a great host. And You're a good man, and I appreciate it.
And I did not pay him to say that. Ken is.
Well, what do you mean? The hamburger and the French fries are getting.
I made sure Ken had some food because he would drive. He's been on the road all day, and I said, "What can I do for you, buddy?" And he goes, "Some coffee would be good." And you know, I said, "Well, we'll take care of you." And I had a whole spread when he came in, and we got to hang out.
He sets a nice table. Listen, if you ever come up here and he doesn't set a nice table for you, I would tell you to complain. You know what I mean?
But
I mean,
it's been a lot of fun though, and and I'm sure you have tons more stories. It's very interesting, and we got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe you come to Florida.
Yeah, we'll go down to Florida and we'll go hang out with Ken.
Yeah, you can. I'd love to have you come down.
Cool.
You know?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Absolutely. Check out Ken's book. It's called One Step Over the Line. It's on Amazon. Tell everybody
it's on
your website.
It's One Step Over the Line, Confessions of a Marijuana Mercenary. This website is onestepovertheline.com. I wrote the book myself. I edited it myself.
Narrated
I actually did the narration myself, which, being profoundly dyslexic, I've never been comfortable with reading, much less reading out loud. But it's one of those things, if you do it for 10,000 hours, you get the hang of it. The book is on Audible. It's on Kindle. It's on Amazon. And if you go to my website, onestepovertheline.com, you can get it on there too as well, on MP3 and PDF. And the website has all kinds of other information, pictures of my race car, pictures of fishing, pictures of boats, stories, the articles from some of the busts that are, you know, the newspapers. You know, there's just a lot more information there. And thank you guys.
No, awesome. That is Ken Behr. Check out his book, One Step Over the Line. Thank you all so much for watching this live tonight. If you can just make sure to please comment down below. Tell us what, let us know what you thought of Ken's story. Give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel and go check out Ken. I mean, he's got a lot of stories to tell. We'll have him back sometime. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. It's late. We're going to get him out of here into the hotel and get some sleep tonight. And I appreciate everybody watching tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.